All right, so the first question there, page 133. Find numbers that make each equation true. Remember, equation true means it's got to be balanced. Each side of the equal sign needs to equal the same thing. So the first one, Kaylee, what do you think? What's A got to be there? 1. A number times its reciprocal is 1. Next one, 7 times what is 1? Josh.
1/7.
The reciprocal of 7, which is 1/7. Kellen, give me 2 numbers
Okay.
to represent C and D.
For C, I put 2, and for D, I put a half.
Perfect. Does it have to be those two? No. But you need to have a number and its reciprocal to multiply to get 1. Yes.
For that one, I put 1 and 1.
1 and 1.
But I think I did.
Okay, it does say
Yeah, I did it wrong.
different, so I'm assuming none of these that we write down should be the same. E. Georgia.
0.
Yes. So now if you notice when we add the number and its opposite, give you 0. Okay. It's called its additive inverse compared to multiplication inverse. One of them will give you 1 when you multiply. When you add, you get 0. So 11 plus what? What, Kaylee? Correct. And 2 representatives for G and H. Colin.
G would be -100 and H would be 100.
Perfect. Just fine. All right, question 2. Match each equation to its solution. Be prepared to explain. Why don't you see if you can answer that? So these equations get matched up with one answer over here, again making it true. So go ahead and try that one. Again, watch the signs. I think that'll help you figure some of these out. Does everybody have at least a couple done? If not all of them. Corbin, give me a 1.
Does an E go to 6?
Not quite 6. So how much money would you have to be in the hole to spend $2 to now be 6.5 in the hole, $6.50? So 6 would be 3.5, and 2.5 would be 5.5. So not quite. Not quite. Kinley, you got one?
Yeah, I got 6 goes to
B?
B.
D. So I know it needs to be a negative because -2 times a negative would give me a positive. And double one amount would give me $7. D is correct. Kellen, another one. A goes with 3. Half of -10 is -5. I agree with that. Georgia?
B is 4.
B is 4. So -2 times 4.5 is 9. Very good. Jared?
E is 1.
E goes to 1. Negative 4.5 plus another negative 2 is negative 6.5. Chesney,
F is 5.
F. Negative 2 plus a positive 2.5 gives me a positive half, and that leaves C with 2. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to solve some of these equations here as we go, but one thing to remember is you're going to do the opposite. Okay, I'm going to do the opposite. For instance, the opposite of a minus 2, add 2. So if I take negative 6.5 plus 2, I would get this number. Okay. The opposite of multiplying by a half, divide by a half. What's dividing by a half the same as? Multiplying by 2. So negative 5 times 2. So you can see how these rules would help you solve these. So we're just going to get into that a little bit today. Corbin, would you read the first question about the hiking club? Number 1.
The members increase their elevation, or sorry, the top of.
Nope, that's fine.
The members increase their elevation 290 feet during their hike this morning. Now they're at an elevation of 450 feet. Explain how to find their elevation before the hike.
All right, so we don't really know where they start out. All we know is that they increased by 290 and now they're at 450. Question A, explain how to find the elevation. Kellen.
Take 450 and subtract 290 from it.
Okay, take away 290 from 450, subtract 290 from 450. Do I actually have to do it? No, it doesn't even ask me for an answer at this point. It says explain how you would solve it. B, Jonas.
And says the equation E plus 290 plus 450 describes the situation. What does the variable E represent?
Okay. So what does this represent? I went up 290, now I'm at 450.
160.
What does it represent in this equation? Not even asking me for a number. E represents the original position, starting elevation, however you would like to say it. I like to think they used E because it's elevation. C. Brody.
Read it.
Yes, please.
One says that he can rewrite his equation as E equals 450 plus negative 290. Solve for E. Compare Tom's strategy to your strategy, finding the negative elevation.
All right, so we said we could subtract 290 from 450, right? That would look like this. How does that compare to what he has? Same thing. Will result in me getting the same answer. Subtracting and adding the negative is the exact same thing. Question 2, Kinley.
The temperature fell 4 degrees in the last hour. Now it is 21 degrees. Write and solve an equation to find the temperature right now.
All right, so here's the first time that we've had to write and solve an equation. So in equation, we're going to have a variable. So do we know what the temperature started at? So we need a letter, a variable, to represent the temperature we started at. T, good choice. Now I have to represent whatever it tells me here. Fell 4 degrees. Minus 4. Now it's 21. So whether you can see the answer there or not, if it says write an equation, we need to write an equation. Now we need an answer to that. Georgia.
25.
And then label degrees. 25 would make it true. Now again, if you have trouble with solving that, get used to saying do the opposite. What's the opposite of a minus 4? Add 4. 21 plus 4, 25. That's how you would solve equations. Next one, question 3, Josh.
There are 3 times as many students participating 42 students on the trip this year. Explain how to find the number of students that came on the hiking trip last year.
Again, it just says explain, no equation necessary. How would you solve it? 3 times more people came this year. Georgia,
42 divided by 3.
you would take 42 divided by 3. Maya says the equation 3 times something equals 42 describes the situation. What does the variable s represent? So, well, we're not even solving again. What does s mean in the equation or the statement, the situation Josh just read? Jonas.
The number of people that came on the trip last year.
Yeah, number of maybe students that came on trip last year. Again, since it's S there, I would like to say students probably instead of people, but we don't even know for sure if that's why they chose S. C. Brooklyn, would you read that one, please?
Maya says that she could rewrite her equation as S equals 1/3 times 42 to solve for S. Compare Maya's strategy to your strategy for finding the number of students on the last year's trip.
Chesney. It's the same. Dividing by 3 and taking it times a third will give you the same answer. Dividing by 3, multiplying by a third. Question number 4. Again, I already see write and solve, so I know I'm going to have to do that. Cost of a hiking trip this year is 2/3 the cost of last year. This year, the trip cost $32. Okay. What's the cost of last year's? Do we know last year's cost? No. So 2/3 times, of means times, cost of last year's trip. I don't know it, so I need a variable to represent it. C equals 32. Now 2/3 of something is 32. This one's a little harder to see. So let's try our method of doing the opposite. Okay, whatever we're doing to the variable, we gotta do the opposite. So what are we doing to the variable right here? Multiplying it by what? 2/3. What's the opposite of multiplying by 2/3? Dividing by 2/3. So that's dividing by 2/3 is gonna give me my answer. 32 divided by 2/3 or multiply by 3/2. All right. Anything you cross cancel there, or do you want to reduce at the end?
Cross cancel.
All right. 32 and 2, 1 and 16. So 16 times 3, $48. If you take 48 times 2/3 to check it, you're going to get 32. So it gets a little more complicated when you have fractions because it's not as simple as just being able to see it all the time. All right, are you ready there? I just want to make a little note on here. It's going to ask us just if it's positive or negative based on a couple of assumptions on that number line. So let's look at A and tell me what you think a good number representation for A would be. Jonas. Maybe 1 3/4, but it's definitely less than 2. Do you agree with that? All right. 1 3/4, 1 1/2. Don't matter. Just make sure you realize that that's less than 2. Or, yeah, less than 2. Now look at B. What do you think is true about B? Veronica. Yeah, and then it's obviously what sign? Certainly negative. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to see how much further. Yeah, around 3. Two and a half. Certainly bigger than 1. 1 would be about right here. All right, so let's check and see if we know if these are going to be positive or negative. So we said A is around 1.5, right? So A minus 1 is going to be positive. A minus 2 is going to be negative. The opposite of B is going to be positive. If I add A and B together, I'm going to get a negative. If I take A minus B, I'm going to get a A minus B. Remember what happens here? That's going to be a plus, so that's going to be a positive. How about if I multiply these two together and then add 1? Well, what's 3 times 1.5? 4.5, so that's going to be negative 4.5 plus 1. That's going to be a negative. Okay, so just watching our signs there, seeing if they make sense. All right, the next part, we're going to look at additive inverses. All right, so let's say I have 5. What would be the additive inverse? That means what would be the number that would give me 0? Negative 5. How about if I would have 2/3 plus something gives me 0? What would be the additive inverse of that one, Josh?
3 halves.
No, not 3/2. Negative 2/3. So you're looking for just the opposite, right? So anytime you see additive inverse, something plus something equals 0. That's what we're looking for. Okay, the multiplication one's going to be equal to 1. So I'm going to give you a set of numbers here. We'll just kind of do it together. Raise your hand. We're going to do the additive inverse. Let's see if we can find 3 matches. Okay, 3 things that would add together to give me 0. Probably want to see them, huh? That's so far off. Better. I'm not going to get them all out here. You won't be able to see them all. Hopefully that's enough where we can find some. All right, so just a few examples if you would, and then just write them down as examples. Numbers that would add up to 0. Brooklyn. 4 and negative 4 would be an example. They would add up to 0. Sophia. 10 and negative 10 would add up to 0. Chesney? 1/3 and negative 1/3 would certainly add up to 0. One more, Jared.
25 plus negative
25 and negative 25, okay? Next question. Let's write a few examples down of multiplication. Remember, we're looking for numbers that would multiply together to give you 1. Chesney, you got one? Okay, so if we're going to get a positive 1, they would both have to be negative. Yep, negative 4 times negative 1/4. Guess not a lot showing there. Autumn?
Negative 1/3 times negative 3.
There's another one. Colin?
1/3 times 3.
1/3 and 3. Georgia? So negative 5 times 5. Is that 1? No, one of them would have to be a fraction. One would have to be 1/5 there. So not quite. Yep.
10 times 0.1.
10 and 1/10. Yeah, that was a decimal in one there. All right, then there's a lot of other ones here. If you're seeing some that don't have matches, I just didn't get them all out. How about this guy? What does that reduce to? 1/25. So 1/25 times 25. Do I have that one out? Yeah, right there. Be a match. So just want you to have a couple down there as examples. Any questions on the difference between the two of them? Just know if you see that term, additive inverse, add up to 0. Multiplication inverse equals 1. Just know that about the both of them. All right, take a look at your homework. Page 138. Okay, again, solving to make it true. Again, the fractions make it a little more difficult. 2/5 times something is 6. So just to help you with that, right now, what am I doing to the variable? What am I doing to that letter? Multiplying it by 2/5. So I need to do the opposite. What is the opposite of multiplying by 2/5? Colin? Dividing by 2/5. Opposite of multiplying by 2/5 is dividing by 2/5, which then we would change to multiplying by 5/2. And that would give me my answer. Okay, again, whatever you're doing to the variable, take a look at the next one. What am I doing to the variable? It don't even matter this side yet. I'm subtracting 8. The opposite of subtracting 8, I would need to add 8. So -4 plus 8 would give me my answer. So just think those things through there as you're solving the equation. Question number 2 says evaluate. That means we're just solving. It tells me what x is. It tells me what y is. It tells me what z is. You got a whole number, you got a fraction, you got a decimal. Okay, so x plus y. So x is 2/5. Y is -4, and you would write your answer. Okay, it's up to you if you want to write answers as fractions or decimals, I guess, whatever you're more comfortable with. Question number 3, just matching. So again, concentrate on what you are doing to the variables. Let's take a look at A. What am I doing to the variable for A? Multiplying by what? Multiplying by 5. What is the opposite of multiplying by 5? I need to divide by 5. However, that's not an option. So what's dividing by 5 the same as? Multiplying by 1/5. Okay, number 4, write an equation where a number is added to a variable and a solution is -8. You're not even solving it. You're writing the equation. Okay, so you're writing an equation. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say the solution is 5. I'm just going to give you an example of one like that. So I want my x to be equal to 5. I need to make an equation that's true. So let's say I have x plus 2 equals, so what would I put here if this has to be 5? Yeah, so there would be my equation in which my solution would be 5. So you're going to write an equation where your solution is -8. Your x would have to be -8, and you're doing the same thing with that fraction. Question number 5, you're just filling out the number line. I think you can handle that. Figure out what the spacing is, label all the other marks. And question number 6 does go on the next page, talking about a elevation in the deepest point of the ocean called Challenger Deep. That's what they descended to the trench in. Rode the Deep Sea Challenger. So it's asking you some questions about that voyage. So 6 questions a day. We got about 7 minutes to work, and that will be due